You know what's awkward? Realizing that monkeys invented capitalism before humans even figured out how to make a wheel. I'm not talking about bartering. I'm not talking about sharing food to make friends. I'm talking about transactional sex. Cold, calculated exchanges, services rendered for goods received. If you think humanity invented the world's oldest profession, I've got news for you. Evolution beat us to it by several million years. And the monkeys? They're really good at it. Welcome to the jungle, where the free market is alive, well, and absolutely shameless. Let me introduce you to the capuchin monkey. Small, intelligent, and deceptively adorable. These little primates live in the forests of Central and South America, swinging through trees, cracking nuts with rocks, and, according to science, running the world's oldest economy. Capuchins are known for being smart, tool users, problem solvers. They've been observed using stones as hammers, sticks as weapons, and leaves as napkins. Researchers love them because they're clever enough to learn complex tasks, but not quite clever enough to question why humans keep putting them in cages and watching them. But here's where it gets interesting. In the early 2000s, a group of researchers at Yale University decided to teach capuchin monkeys about money. Not metaphorical money, actual currency. They gave them small metal discs, tokens, that could be exchanged for food. Grapes, apples, marshmallows. The monkeys caught on fast. Too fast. Within weeks, the capuchins understood supply and demand. They learned to save tokens. They even learned to steal tokens from each other, which honestly is the most capitalist thing I've ever heard. But then something happened that the researchers didn't plan for. Something that made them realize they weren't just teaching monkeys about economics. They were watching evolution's blueprint for commerce. Raw, unfiltered, and extremely uncomfortable to explain in academic journals. One day, a male capuchin did something unprecedented. He handed a token to a female. She accepted it. And then, right there in front of the researchers, they had sex. Immediately after, the female walked over to the human researcher, handed over the token, and bought herself a grape. The researchers stood there frozen because what they just witnessed wasn't animal behavior. It was a transaction. The male had paid for sex, the female had accepted payment, and then she'd gone and spent her earnings on food. Prostitution. In monkeys, the world's oldest profession, alive and well in a Yale research lab. Now, before you think this was a one-time thing, some weird fluke, it kept happening. Different monkeys, same behavior. Males would offer tokens, females would accept, sex would occur, grapes would be purchased. The researchers, understandably, panicked. This wasn't supposed to happen. They'd set out to study economic behavior, not create a red light district for primates. The study was quietly adjusted. The findings? Published, but with very careful wording. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. This wasn't learned behavior. The researchers didn't teach the monkeys to trade sex for money. The monkeys figured it out themselves, which means this behavior, this transactional, economically rational exchange of sex for resources, was already in there, hardwired, waiting for the right conditions to emerge. And it's not just capuchins. Let's talk about bonobos, our closest living relatives, sharing about 98.7% of our DNA. Bonobos are famous for one thing: sex. They have sex to say hello. They have sex to resolve conflicts. They have sex to celebrate finding food. If there's a social situation, bonobos have probably tried to solve it with sex. But here's where it gets transactional. Bonobo females will exchange sex for access to food. A male finds a papaya, females will approach, offer sex, and suddenly they've got papaya access. No papaya, no sex. Simple economics. And before you think this is just about males exploiting females, let me stop you right there. Female bonobos are the ones in charge. They form alliances, they control resources, and they use sex as currency to build coalitions, to gain favors, to climb the social ladder. It's not exploitation, it's strategy. Researchers have watched female bonobos trade sex with males for meat, trade sex with other females for grooming privileges, trade sex for protection, for access to babies, for prime sleeping spots. Every interaction is calculated. Every exchange has value. David Attenborough would never narrate this, but it's the truth. And it gets darker. Chimpanzees, our other closest relatives, have been observed in similar behaviors. Male chimps who share meat are more likely to mate with females, not because the females are romantically interested, but because meat is rare, valuable, and worth trading for. One study in Gombe found that males who shared meat had sex twice as often as males who didn't. The correlation was undeniable. The females weren't being coerced. They were making choices. Economic choices. And here's the kicker. The females would often have sex with the male before receiving the meat. Credit-based transactions. They were literally extending lines of credit to males they deemed trustworthy.
Now, let's zoom out for a second, because this isn't just about sex. It's about something deeper, the evolution of exchange itself. Every species needs resources, food, shelter, protection, but resources are limited. Competition is fierce. So evolution figured something out. If you can't take what you need by force, maybe you can trade for it. And what's the most valuable thing you have that doesn't cost you resources? Your body, your labor, your reproductive capacity. Humans like to think we invented commerce. We built markets, currencies, stock exchanges. We wrote laws about contracts and property. But we didn't invent the concept. We just formalized what was already there. Capuchins trading sex for tokens? That's not an aberration. That's evolution showing its work. Because here's what the monkeys understand that we pretend not to. Everything has value. Everything can be traded. And if you're smart, you'll figure out how to leverage what you have to get what you need. It's cold. It's calculating. It's capitalism in its purest form. And the monkeys didn't need business school to figure it out. But here's where the story takes a turn. Because while we're sitting here, horrified and fascinated by monkeys trading sex for food, we're missing the bigger picture. This isn't about morality. It's about survival. In the wild, female capuchins and bonobos aren't trading sex because they're desperate or exploited. They're trading sex because it works. Because in a world where food is scarce, predators are everywhere, and infant mortality is high, any strategy that increases your chances of survival is a good strategy. Male has food, female gets food access, and potentially a protector for her offspring. Male gets sex and the chance to pass on his genes. Both parties benefit. Both parties survive. It's not pretty, it's not romantic, but it's effective. And here's the irony. We humans love to judge this behavior. We call it prostitution. We call it transactional. We act like it's some moral failing, some corruption of pure animal innocence. But we do the exact same thing. We just use different currencies. We date people for their money, for their status, for their ability to provide security. We stay in relationships because leaving would be financially devastating. We marry for health insurance, for citizenship, for social advancement. We've built entire societies around transactional relationships. We just dress them up with romance and commitment and call it civilization. The monkeys, they're honest about it. No pretense, no poetry, just pure, efficient exchange. And maybe that's what makes us so uncomfortable. Not that the monkeys are like us, but that we're like them. That underneath all our laws and morals and romantic comedies, we're still just primates trying to maximize our survival with whatever resources we have. The monkeys didn't invent capitalism, They just never bothered to feel guilty about it.
So, what's the moral here? That love is a lie? That everything's transactional? That we're all just sophisticated monkeys in expensive clothes? Not exactly. The moral is simpler. Nature doesn't care about your feelings. Nature cares about survival. And survival requires resources. And resources require exchange. The capuchin monkey figured this out the moment it had something to trade. The bonobo built an entire society around it. And humans, we just made it complicated enough that we could pretend it was something else. But here's what's actually beautiful about this. Yes, beautiful. These exchanges aren't just about exploitation. They're about cooperation, about recognizing that you have something someone else needs, and they have something you need. And maybe you can both walk away better off. That's not corruption. That's the foundation of every functional society ever built. The female capuchin monkey who traded sex for a token and then bought a grape, she wasn't a victim. She was an entrepreneur. She identified a market opportunity and capitalized on it. That male wanted sex. She wanted food. They made a deal. No one got hurt. Everyone got what they wanted. Is it romantic? No. Is it effective? Absolutely. And maybe that's the real lesson. Evolution doesn't judge. It just rewards what works. The monkeys trading sex for food are doing exactly what millions of years of natural selection taught them to do. Survive by any means necessary. Use every resource. Exploit every advantage. Trade. Negotiate. Strategize. They're not immoral. They're efficient. And we humans, with all our laws and ethics and philosophical debates about the nature of love and commerce, we're just catching up to what the monkeys figured out a long time ago. Nature invented capitalism. Nature invented trade. Nature invented the cold, hard logic of exchange. We just gave it a name and pretended we invented it ourselves. So, the next time you hear someone say that money corrupts, that commerce destroys innocence, that modern society has lost its way, remember the capuchin monkey. Remember that millions of years before Wall Street, before currency, before humans even existed, evolution was already writing the rules of economics. And those rules were simple. Everything has value. Everyone has needs. And if you're smart enough, you'll figure out how to trade one for the other. The monkeys knew it then. They know it now. And deep down, so do we. Nature doesn't care about fairness. It only cares about survival. And sometimes survival looks a lot like commerce.